Hello everyone, Fred here. In this installment of TPP Dynamite, I'm going to be reviewing episode 4 of CSI Vegas' season 2, Koala. First things first though, if you haven't already, let me encourage you to subscribe to my channel. I'm an author of adult and young adult mystery novels. To date, I've released 3 books, The Women in White, The Lethal List, and most recently, Textbook Murder. All of them are on sale now, and there are purchase links in my video description below. With that in mind, and without further ado, welcome to my spoiler-filled review of CSI Vegas Season 2, Episode 4, Koala. The episode opens on a masked team of 3 gunmen who break into a palatial mansion, awake a man from his sleep, then force him and his family to get on their knees in the living room. They drag the man to his safe, and the scene cuts away as we hear gunfire. A pregnant woman escapes by jumping out of a window, but she doesn't get far. 2 of the gunmen exit the house, and one of them shoots her to death on the sidewalk. Elsewhere, Catherine has been trying to get a hold of Lindsay, but with no success. Lindsay is upset with Catherine for some reason, which is a far cry from the Lindsay whom we saw at the end of the original CSI crime scene investigation wrap-up movie Immortality, which featured Lindsay as she was preparing to follow in Catherine's footsteps as a CSI. Catherine gets called to the mansion crime scene just in time to watch paramedics safely deliver the baby of the dead woman, who is revealed to be named Juliet Grice. Inside of Juliet's home, the CSIs also find the bodies of Juliet's parents and brother. Ali Rajan finds a bloody handprint in the house. Meanwhile, Penny Gill, another CSI whom we haven't seen in a while, loses her nerve and gets sick from seeing the scene. She goes to vomit outside, and while doing so, discovers a pair of threatening notes that the gunmen used to coerce the father into playing along with their act. At the same time, Josh Folsom finds a shotgun shell in the front yard. Catherine tries unsuccessfully to negotiate with a child services officer in order to collect evidence off of the newly born baby who's fighting for its life. Catherine then returns to the crime lab and finds a still very unnerved Penny, who actually wants to quit her job due to shame because of how she lost her nerve at the scene. Catherine gives Penny a pep talk and convinces her to stay on and see the case through to the end. Allie and Josh identify 3 killers from a neighbor's surveillance camera and realize that the 2 gunmen who found the pregnant woman after she jumped out of the window fought amongst themselves, probably over whether to go through with killing Juliet. In that fight, one of the gunmen lost a tooth. Allie and Josh also realize that the blood from the handprint inside of the house is Juliet's blood. Allie and Bo, however, reason that the print may have been made with Juliet's blood, but most likely belongs to one of the killers. Penny, inspired by Catherine's pep talk, catches her second wind and processes the house again, eventually finding a micro-crocheted koala paw that she strongly believes holds some significance. Catherine is doubtful, but Penny runs the thing for DNA anyway and connects it to the handprint. Penny then hypothesizes that the handprint was left in the house on purpose as a cry for help. She thinks that the gunman who was hesitant to shoot Juliet outside left both the koala paw and the handprint to create an evidentiary trail, and that said gunman wants to be caught. The CSIs managed to track the owner of the shotgun by the shell that was left behind, revealing him to be Edward Allen, who formerly worked for Juliet's father. Edward claims that he sold 3 shotguns to 3 individuals whom he can identify. Catherine gets frustrated by the dead end and asks Max, who is still recovering from the attack that she suffered last episode, to use her Child Protective Services connection to get a DNA swab from Juliet's baby. Max is able to get it done, and by the time that Max brings the swab to the crime lab, Josh has tested the tooth found at the crime scene and confirmed that one of the gunmen is actually a gun woman, as well as the mother of Juliet's baby, which explains why said gun woman was hesitant to shoot Juliet outside of her home. However, just as that revelation lands, the CSIs get a call about another family slave. This time, a family called the Einstein family has been murdered with shotguns. But this time, one of the home invaders was also killed at the scene. While this whole situation is unfolding, Catherine unburdens herself to Max about her problematic relationship with Lindsay, who refuses to answer her messages. Max orders Catherine to take some time off and go to physically visit her daughter. Catherine does it, making a lunchtime appointment that Lindsay is actually good enough to keep with her. Lindsay wastes no time in making clear that she does not like Catherine right now and that she quit being a CSI because she saw doing that sort of work as fulfilling Catherine's dream as opposed to her own. Lindsay's dream appears to be getting rich by filming half-naked videos of herself for some sort of website that I think is supposed to be a send-up of OnlyFans. And she argues that Catherine has no right to judge her because Catherine herself was a stripper during her youth. Lindsay rebuffs Catherine when Catherine says that she's working an emotionally difficult case and just wanted some mother-daughter fuel by seeing her. Lindsay says that it never occurred to Catherine that she might need daughter-mother fuel, and she references 3 words that she's wanted to say to Catherine for a long time, but just feels that she might never have the strength to tell her. When Catherine asks what they are, Lindsay leaves and says that she guesses that Catherine may never know unless she decides to text her again. At the Einstein family crime scene, Penny finds another koala paw. Jay finds a photo of the Grice family in the Einstein family's home, a photo that includes a man named Justin Einstein, who was the only surviving member of the massacre that occurred at his home. When the CSIs question Justin, he tearfully admits that he is the father of Juliet's baby. He explains that he was a sperm donor and that Juliet was carrying the baby. Juliet was in a homosexual relationship with a woman named Lucia Marshman, who happens to be one of a set of triplets. And Lucia was planning to leave her sisters to build a life and a family with Juliet. The murdered gunman at the Einstein house is yet another gun woman, as well as one of Lucia's 2 sisters. The CSIs realized fast that the 3 sisters were the 3 killers and that Lucia was the one who hesitated to kill Juliet. Justin gives up an address for the 3 sisters, and the cops and CSIs speed over to that address. When they break into the place, however, they find that Lucia is holding her surviving sister, Darcy, at gunpoint, preparing to kill her. Catherine gets Max, the CSIs, and the other cops to leave the place and let her speak to Lucia alone. She insists that Lucia doesn't need for someone to negotiate with her right now, but rather needs, quote-unquote, a sister. Catherine gets Lucia's attention by showing Lucia a photo of her baby. Lucia tells Catherine that Darcy, the oldest of the triplets, has basically been controlling her and their other sister since childhood. Lucia previously had 1 child, but Darcy stole the baby from Lucia and put it up for adoption, insisting that if she couldn't have a child, then none of her sisters could either. When Darcy learned that Lucia planned to leave the sisterhood to have another baby and a family with Juliet, she coerced Lucia and their other sister to go to the Grice home and rob the family as a quote-unquote baby tax. Darcy, however, always planned to murder the family also, which is exactly what she did. It's implied to us, the viewers, that Lucia found out later that her baby survived, but Darcy then decided to tie up all loose ends by killing the Einstein family as well. Lucia decided then that she wasn't about to let Darcy or their other sister ruin her life any further or steal away her other child. She gunned down her other sister at the Einstein house, and it's implied that she kidnapped Darcy at gunpoint and took her back to their own home to finish her off there. Though why Lucia waited so long to do it remains pretty much a mystery and a big plot hole actually in this episode. Catherine empathizes with Lucia, bonding with her by mentioning her own experiences with Lindsay. However, Lucia eventually decides that she isn't worth saving and that Darcy isn't either. She prepares to kill Darcy, but Catherine tackles her and manages to get the gun away from her before calming her down. Catherine and Lucia leave the house together, and Lucia is arrested peacefully, while Darcy is also taken into custody. Max commends Catherine for her efforts and their effectiveness. Max also later commends Penny for her persistence. Catherine visits Lucia's baby at the end of the episode, and while she's visiting the child, she gets a text from Lindsay that simply says, "I love you." The end. So here are my thoughts. Much of the plot and the science behind this episode felt pretty weak, which was surprising when you consider that the episode was written by Anthony Zucker, the creator of the CSI franchise and the guy who wrote some of the original CSI show's best episodes. Even so, this episode itself was full of plot holes and messy internal logic, like how Lucia found out that her baby had survived, why she wouldn't have tried to warn the families or Juliet before the murders, how she thought that the CSIs would ever find microscopic koalas if she left them at the crime scenes, why she wouldn't just call the cops and tell them the whole truth about Darcy's plan if she really wanted to be caught, etc. The motive for the family murders was also quite the head-scratcher. The viewer never really meets Darcy in any meaningful way this episode, but her whole plan to kill two families just because Lucia wanted to have a baby and a family of her own seems so insane and unnecessary and honestly stupid. It just didn't make sense how Darcy thought that that would be the solution to the problem of Lucia's wanting to move on with a life of her own. Catherine Willows was easily this episode's saving grace though. Last season's major old guard guest stars were Jim Brass, David Hodges, and more so Gil Grissom and Sarah Seidel. Last season's heavy focus on Gil and Sarah's form of investigation meant a naturally heavy focus on forensic gymnastics. That sort of approach tied in with Gil's default setting as the stalwart scientist who only believes in what he can prove empirically. This season's major old guard guest star is Catherine, which naturally means that this season's heavy focus on Catherine's form of investigation includes a lesser emphasis on the science and a greater emphasis on people and emotions. This episode is basically a totem to that reality, and Marge Helgenberger's performance really makes it work. Catherine's natural strength as a people person is honestly what sold this episode's many emotional beats, which is a good thing because most of them were fairly basic and probably would have fallen flat if a lesser character had been dealing with them. Catherine turned out to be just what the doctor ordered to get Penny to cheer up and soldier on. She doesn't castigate the younger CSI for her feelings of sickness at the crime scene, and she even encourages those feelings, telling Penny to put the feelings into the job and telling Penny that those feelings are what separate her from the killer she's trying to catch. Catherine also turns out to be just what the doctor ordered to get Lucia to surrender peacefully and to save Darcy's life. Though of course I really don't think that the world would have been a much worse place without Darcy in it. I mean seriously, that lady killed two whole families just because she didn't want Lucia to have a baby when she couldn't. That's next level evil. During the original CSI, it was always a fun treat to watch Grissom and Catherine's headbutting over the role that cold science versus warm empathy played in solving crimes, especially since Catherine and Grissom were each so good at using his or her chosen style to get the job done. Seeing a little resurgence of that difference here, though a resurgence that's become more apparent across entire seasons of this show versus lone episodes, was a nice little nostalgic callback to the original CSI. The Lindsay storyline was, in my opinion, the worst and weakest part of this episode. Even when the original CSI was airing, I was not the biggest fan of what the creatives did with Lindsay Willows. At first, I liked how the writers used Lindsay as a little girl to give viewers a window into Catherine's personal life and how her experiences as a single mother colored her approach to crime solving and to relations with her colleagues. Then, as the original CSI went on, the creatives basically turned Lindsay into an annoying plot device. She was aged up off screen so that she could be an angsty and rebellious teenager. She kept getting dragged into random episodes and given random storylines where she was a troubled young adult with questionable friends and poor lifestyle choices. It was all done so that Catherine could be turned into a stereotypical law enforcement parent with an out-of-control kid, and it all felt so reductive of better executed parent-child storylines from other movies and TV series that were coming out at the time. The Catherine Lindsay drama seemed to reach a nice conclusion at the end of the Immortality movie that wrapped up the original CSI show. Lindsay had apparently straightened out her life and was on her way to following in Catherine's footsteps by becoming a CSI. Then this episode went and ruined all of that. It was pretty clear from the start of CSI Vegas Season 1 that Lindsay was no longer a CSI, though that was never really explained in the show before now. But this episode makes a complete break with her happy ending from Immortality by turning her into a single mom herself now, by making her hate Catherine again, and by making her a stripper who embraces 21st century technology to pull way more money in the profession than Catherine did when she was in that game. And it all just felt so contrived, so counterintuitive. Lindsay apparently hates Catherine now because Catherine won't visit her more often, but she also doesn't want Catherine to visit her more often. Lindsay judges Catherine for being a stripper a million years before she cleaned herself up and became a CSI, but Lindsay also literally left her job as a CSI to become a stripper. And Lindsay's reasons for doing it are so much more foolish. Catherine did it because she was desperate for work and trying to support a family. Lindsay did it because it tickled her fancy and paid her more than a nobler profession, I guess. Despite hating Catherine, Lindsay apparently loves Catherine, but inexplicably refuses to let Catherine love her. It makes no sense, and I am so not here for it. At least it seems that Catherine and Lindsay's relationship is on the road to repair by the end of this episode, again. Let's just hope it sticks this time, because I am honestly not sure how much more of the manufactured drama between the two of them I can take. Anyway, down to brass tacks. This episode is pretty good, all told. The mystery was interesting, though its plot left a bit to be desired. Marge Helgenberger knocked it out of the park with her emotional performance as Catherine the Human Whisperer Willows, which helped to sell the episode's many emotional and family-themed elements, which is a good thing because those elements might well have fallen short if they'd been anchored by a lesser actress. I give CSI Vegas Season 2, Episode 4, Koala, 3 Cronuts out of 5. At any rate, tell me what you think in the comments below. If you like this video, don't forget to leave a like, click subscribe, and please ring that bell. So long.